Ba-ba-ba-bum. Let's see. Yeah, I got to use my glasses. That's better. I'm gonna stay with that. How y'all doing, people? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Good evening and welcome. Take a little sip before we get started. I got a confession to make. Unless I go out to dinner, the only time I drink is on my show. Believe it or not. So where we at, people? YouTube, where you at? Where you at? Facebook, where you at? Where you at? I see one or two people come in. You know the deal. You know the drill. The deal is when you come in, send me a little what's up. Send me some thumbs up. Send me some kisses if you're a woman. If you do, send me a power sign, a dap, Yeah, bros give hugs, but bros don't throw kisses, not where I'm from. What up, Jennifer? I try to call you. Make sure you check your messages. I sent you my new number, just so you'll know, just so you know. Um, waiting on these people to send me a phone. I lost while traveling. And anytime you do anything via insurance, it takes a minute. What's up? Hey, bro, this one's for you, man. I ain't gonna talk about what it is because they're not sponsoring me, but this was for you, TJ. So smooth. It's the only way to go, man. I don't know what you said, but I started off with two fingers neat. I'm down to one finger now. Go figure. Um, Crazy world in which we live, and I'm just gonna talk about it real quick and get out of here because I know you guys are tired of hearing about it. The only reason I decided to take up this thing is because the taste is even more perfect. Um, it's because I think you only get one side of the story on the news. Um, on one hand, even though 50% of the Jews don't like what's happening, they have to support the cause because, you know, they just stick together. Let's be real about it. Openly, they kind of talk about, I got to say something about my Dallas dog. Don't distract me. Don't distract me. Openly, they will criticize Netanyahu, but they'll support the effort to promote, you know, all that's going on. What's up, Val Val? Will, what's happening, man? Uh, Folks, I've got a lot of this on my head, and it's so funny because my first job in the Marine Corps was as um, 0351. I did anti-tank assault and demolitions, but I trained in first first jungle warfare because I went in right after Vietnam, and then we were the first being stationed in 29 Palms, as it's more affectionately named, 29 Stumps. We were the first to be trained in desert warfare. So when I see some of the things happening, I feel compelled to speak about it because I think of the repercussions that may wind up involving us from a military perspective, and then some of the young Marines that um, are just starting to get their lives together, young soldiers, young airmen, young sailors and so forth and so on. So I'm gonna talk a little bit tonight about a few things. I'm gonna talk about what I call the warmongers, the dictators, the autocrats, and the opportunistic, power-hungry so-called leaders around the globe. I'm talk about that briefly. I'm gonna talk about some of the things that's happening here domestically, and then I'll probably close out with um, just where I see all of this going. And let me just give you my disclaimer. I hope my predictions, I hope my Creole powers are wrong, but I just see what's happening, and it frightens me for people that go into the military trying to have a better life. And some of them really believe in the mission, but we've got leaders that don't believe in the people that serve and sacrifice for this country. And so, with my birthday coming up, and yes, ma'am, I'm born on the Marine Corps' birthday, and I'll say this on air one time. I was going in the Air Force because I wanted to go to med school and law school. And the difference between the Air Force and the Marine Corps, the Air Force make you wait until your job comes open. Then they send you to straight from boot camp to whatever your military military occupational strategy specialty is going to be. And you have to understand when I start doing the research here, I really get pissed off with all that's going on. So by the time I come to the camera, I'm really over the top, and I'm trying to maintain my professionalism and subdue some of the things that I call anger and what have you. So if I stumble, it's because I've just got so much going on. So it's about 6 past the half. What I'm going to do is go ahead and start the show. Let's say good evening, welcome to the show. My name is Hank Batiste. This is OMITDALOGIC. I'm your host tonight. And before I get started, I want to say that I'm truly humbled that each and every one of you have taken the time out to come here tonight to hear what I have to say. When I look at some of the same faces week after week, when I look at the people that support me, when I look at the fact that I don't really advertise my show, I'm overwhelmed and I'm humbled that you guys support me, want to hear what I have to say as I break this down. My background is in, you know, not only being in the military, my background is in public policy, my background is in medicine, my background is in leadership. So I kind of took up some of these things, and when I see what's happening, I have to speak on it. With wars raging all over Europe, in the Ukraine, in the Middle East, the voices in my head tonight are super saturated, and we're ready for it to just be over and done with. I use the term super saturated, and let me just kind of explain what that means. If you take a sponge and you dip it in water, it can only absorb so much water. After that, it loses its usefulness because now the water is dripping out. That's the point of supersaturation. So that's where we are. I know I'm not the only one feeling this way. Um, I know you're feeling it as well because as soon as you turn on the TV, you're hearing about the war in Israel, you're hearing about this, you're hearing about the war in Ukraine, you're hearing about the domestic wars that are raging here in the country with what I call the ongoing coup, the coup that continues as those powers to be continue to propel someone who's unfit for service, unfit for the office of president, pushing this person forward to be their nominee. So I'm super saturated. I know you are too. With that being said, we're also tired of hearing about all of this nonsense in New York with this trial. We all know what he did. We all know what he's been doing since then. We all see how he and his sons and family walk into court with a smug look on their face. I'm more frightened when I walk into court for a traffic offense when all I'm facing is a couple $100 of a fine, knowing that my insurance is going to go up for the next 3 years. And he's totally at ease and feeling no fear whatsoever with some of the atrocities that he's committed, not just against the business world, but America as a whole. So it is what it is. I'm tired of the circus and all things that is Donald Trump. On a lighter note, my birthday is coming up. I was born on the Marine Corps' birthday. Hence, I didn't go in the Air Force. I went into the Marine Corps. Then I had an uncle who was a sergeant major. And the Marine Corps is like this. They're going to bring you in before you get a chance to change your mind. So when you sign on the paper and say you're going in the Corps, they usually give you a swearing in right there. And you don't know it don't mean anything until you're there, but you think, okay, I've committed to this, so you usually follow through. Um, just a lighter note, something to make you laugh. I was in the Marine Corps. I had two in boot camps. I had two nicknames. One was belligerent Batiste because I figured out when the DIs would piss me off, the drill inspectors would piss me off. The only way I had to get even at them was to smile and ask, "Sir, the private wants to know why, sir." So it irritated him because quote unquote, God damn it, Batiste, you're not getting paid to think. When I said jump, you just go into orbit. So I was belligerent. Batiste was one of my nicknames, and the other was they caught me singing in the shower. So they put foot lockers together, made me stand on the foot lockers and sing the Marine Corps hymn till taps went. So then I was given a second nickname was Private Satchmo. So on a good day, I was Private Satchmo, and I got a chance to march the platoon back from Chow when we got to second and third phase in boot camp. Um, and that was the fun part. The bad part was when I saw some of the inconsistencies, but um, it was a shock to myself because I was kind of used to being, I guess a little special. People looking at what I had to offer and kind of promoting that. And I think what made it even worse, I had a company commander that looked at my scores and said, "Well, why didn't you apply for OCS?" And I'm like, "Sir, the private didn't know." He says, "Well, Batiste, first of all, just calm down. We talking here." And I'm like, "Okay, is this some kind of trick or what?" And then I'd come out and he says, "Okay, I'm going to recommend you for this and I'm going to recommend you for that." And next thing I know, I'm a squad leader and so forth and so on. And then I had problems with the DIs because that tissue ain't special. You know what I mean? So fun times as we embark upon that. Two things are coming up in about 8 days. One is my birthday, the Marine Corps' birthday. The second is, and the ninth day, the day after the Marine Corps' birthday, is Veterans Day. And with Veterans Day, I'm reminded of all the people, not just the ones that didn't make it back alive. I'm reminded of so many veterans that I know, male and female, who came back, but who will never be whole. So when I look at what's happening around the world, it touches me personally because there's so many people that I know, and there's so many people that I don't know that I still feel for. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and say good evening, welcome to the show. This is OMITDALOGIC. I am Hank Batiste. Let's break this shit down, make it make sense. First up, Prime Minister Ben Netanyahu. I've given him a nickname, folks. I call him Putin Yahoo because what he's doing, in my opinion, in the Middle East is no different than what Putin is doing in Ukraine. He's expanding his offensive assault on the Palestinians under the guise of attacking Hamas. Last count I heard, over 9,000 Palestinians have been killed since this war started a couple weeks ago. So that's about, in 2 weeks' time, that's about 4,500, a close to 5,000 people dying a week. So let's just say 5,000 times 52 weeks. Because the other thing he says, this is not going to be a 2-week or 2-month war. This is going to be more protracted, more prolonged. So we know. I said, and I'm convinced, that Netanyahu couldn't give a shit about those people that we call hostages. Because as the rest of NATO in the world, and even Hamas, is calling for a ceasefire, he's ignoring them. He's ignoring everybody. Does that not sound like Putin to you? You're absolutely right, Chaz. The Palestinians are being eliminated. He wants to eradicate a whole group, a whole ethnic group of people, a whole race of people, simply because he does not want to share land with them. Last week, I gave you a brief history, and I'm going to reiterate that. Back in 1983, about 20, 30 years ago, there was a prime minister from Israel by the name of Yitzhak Rabin. There was a president of the Palestinian state by the name of Yasser Arafat. The two of these men finally came together to work out a peace accord so that Palestinians and Israelis could share this land in what's been called the Holy Land. It was Netanyahu's right wing, and anytime I hear the term right wing, I know it's some craziness. It was Netanyahu's right wing group that was responsible for Rabin's murder. So at a peace rally, this man was shot 3 times in the back. And the assassin was paraded around like he had just done, like he had exterminated all the rats out of the kingdom. And then within less than a year, Benjamin Netanyahu named himself prime minister. Earlier this year, I told you, when he took to get rid of, every government has somebody that's supposed to have internal, inherent checks and balances to keep the premier, to keep the president honest. When I saw Netanyahu do away with his parliament, which is equivalent to our Congress, I knew that something was on the horizon. I knew that he would take a more aggressive stance with the Palestinians. After the Second World War, somewhere back in 1947, 48, Over 750 Palestinians were displaced as Jews were moved into parts of the Middle East. So that started a modern day conflict. And there's not been peace since. So in 1993, when Arafat and Rabin came together to strike a deal where these two groups of people could live in peace, he was assassinated. Netanyahu took over, and he's been playing a long game, and we are where he wants it to be. So he's not going to listen to anybody else. That's all I got to say about that. In closing, we use terms like war hawk and warmonger. These are people who thrive on war. 1995, Bill Clinton was the president. And he said something, and I'm trying to remember. He says the world should be impressed not by our use of power. I can't remember, but I'll look it up because right now my head is spinning. Not by our show of power, but basically what he was saying is the restraint of power, not the use of power. And I'll look it up and I'll give it to you. So this man is a warmonger. He's using this tragedy to push his own agenda. Moving on. The other reason I'm concerned about this, and this is transitioning into how NATO and the rest of the world looks at this. Because up until this point, we've been given a blank check and a free hand to Israel to quote unquote defend itself. Over 50% of Jews, especially Israelis, those that live in Israel and in the Gaza Strip and around the Middle East, have said that this is going too far. They're being displaced and they're fighting a war that they don't want to fight. Biden and NATO and Congress is saying that he's going too far because the casualty counts among civilians is too high. Now this new Mike Brown, I want to call him Mike, rest in peace, Mike Brown. Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House. He's talking about giving money to Israel, but nothing to Ukraine. I'm not even going to talk about the ramifications of Ukraine losing to Russia and Putin. I'm not even going to talk about what happens if the USSR and that aggression from Russia is able to reassemble itself. But how it really affects us, because we have always pledged support to Israel if in fact they are attacked by Syria or Iran or any of these dark Muslim countries. Biden spoke out when now what's happening is this constant bombardment in Lebanon, which is not part of the Jewish state, which is not part of the Holy Land, to no avail. He's not listening. Moving on. Meanwhile, back in America, we've got the trumpublicans who are poised to make sure that Donald Trump is their nominee. We've got a Speaker of the House by the name of Mike Johnson, who's one of the lawyers who drafted the paperwork to deny the 2020 election results. Now, this very same person is Speaker of the House and second in succession to the big chair of the Oval Office. If that shit doesn't scare you, and I know you're tired of hearing about it, but I got to break this shit down because we can be drawn into a war where our young people, some of you have sons and daughters and grandchildren that are our age and are looking to go into the military to get money for school or to learn electronics or because they want to travel the world. And instead of them having an opportunity to better themselves in the next year or so, we can find ourselves fighting against Iran or Syria. Syria. Excuse me, people. Syria. Simply because Israel, and not Israel, not the Israeli people. Let me make that perfectly clear. It's Benjamin Netanyahu, aka Benjamin Putinyahu, with his delusions of grandeur and dictatorship and warmongering. He's got troops poised and all roads lead right back to Israel right now. In addition to all of the craziness that goes on here, we got our own dictator to be concerned about. We've got this delusional despot who will follow suit and who will give Israel his support, who has no respect for anyone who wears the uniform, who takes his oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we got all of those people that are poised to put him back in office, A, so that he can avoid being prosecuted and possibly sent to jail. With every day that passes in New York, the likelihood of him ever doing jail time becomes dimmer and dimmer. I see them finding him, and I see poor white folks and black folks paying off his fees so that he can keep on doing what he's doing. So we can't just stick our heads in the sand. But you and I are tired of turning on CNN. We're tired of turning on MSNBC. We're tired of turning on Fox. We're tired. We're super saturated. We're fed up with this country being drawn into conflicts simply because there's someone somewhere who wants to be a dictator, who wants to rule his world. And the crazy thing about this, when you look at Kim Jong Un, and you look at China, and you look at Russia, and you look at Israel, and you look at Italy, and you add a Donald Trump in the United States to that, those folks still couldn't get along. So they're going to be vying for who's the biggest dictator in the playground. Huh. Back on Inauguration Day, January 2021, I wrote a piece, a spoken word, and I say, in hindsight, 2020, 2020 wasn't 2020. And I said that simply because there are too many people who can do whatever they want and they don't pay for their transgressions. They don't pay for breaking the law. They feel like they're above the law. And I want to tell you that I believe so strongly in democracy that that's the reason I vote. When in essence, the truth of the matter is, it's the only recourse that we have. So when you think about this stuff, when you start to digest this nonsense that I've been talking about for the last 40 minutes or so, I'm going to say, let's continue. But what we have to do, we have to start ensuring that we're not constantly picking the lesser of two evils. People have asked me, why won't I run for office? And I said, because I don't play well with others. I wouldn't play well in that sandbox. I do this not because I want to get paid. I do this because I heard Ali say something one time, and I found it the YouTube, and I posted it on my page. He talked about fighting a championship fight and donating all of the money. And then he talked about getting other black performers to lend their talents as well. So I do this because it falls heavy on my heart, because it falls heavy on my spirit, because I've been blessed with a certain amount of giving a shit when it's not my turn to give a shit. And then having just a little bit of intelligence and being able to make it make sense. So I've never asked any of you for a single dime to donate to anything. I won't run for office because I know one of two things would happen. I would have a ulcer and a stroke fighting an uphill battle, being one of the few people that's fighting for a principle and not for my own ego. Before I go, I would say this. As we embark upon these uncertain times, reach out to somebody that you care about and be nice. All of you folks come here week in and week out to hear what I have to say, and it humbles me. And when I get full like this and I can't talk, and I'm trying to present this information to you, I go through this shit because of you. So I truly believe that it's up to us to somehow make this place a little bit better for our children's children, and our grandchildren's children. I'm doing my part. Get involved in your local communities because that's where these people start. Before I go, I'm gonna ask you to do me a favor. Go to my YouTube, OMITDALOGIC, OMITDALOGIC, OMIT, OMIT, the LOGIC, logic. Sign up. Send this to somebody. As dark as this shit is, it's 10 times more necessary. And if you do that, I'll see you next week. Same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place. And before I depart, let me just say this. Don't be so afraid of dying that you forget to live for a purpose. It seems that in retirement, this has become my purpose. Because there's one thing about this game called life. Nobody leaves alive. So if you don't stand for something, you're going to die for anything, for nothing. And it's always important. I wish you love. I wish you peace. 2 fingers to the sky. Like your man, Cat Grease. I'm out of here, folks. I'm going to tell you one more time. The only time I drink is when I'm on my show and if I go out. Every now and then I get a little taste. Otherwise, I'm gone, folks. Love you to death. Thanks for your support. Hopefully it'll make a difference in your life. Good night. What's up? What's up? Crazy's gone wild. That's an understatement. Yeah. Now, folks, I'm going to give me something to eat. I need a little snack. And this time I'm not going to Buc-ee's. I ain't going to spend no more money with them people. Good night, ladies.